Okay, welcome to section 4. Today we are going to talk about the age of Jefferson. Last we left off together, the election of 1800, we had Jefferson facing off against Adams for the second time, except this time there was a different outcome. Jefferson wins the election. Something to keep in your brain, Jefferson is our first Democratic Republican president. Our first two presidents were both Federalists. Now we are going to see a change in political parties. This changing of the tides from Federalists to Democratic Republicans means that we are going to see different actions in the government. During the time in which Jefferson is president, beginning in 1801 to 1809, we'll see the national debt shrink considerably. This is going to be a huge accomplishment for Jefferson, but it comes at the expense of having to make cuts somewhere. The cuts that Jefferson makes is going to be to the Army and the Navy. He's also going to streamline government jobs. In order to make money, there are going to be customs revenues that are increased during Jefferson's presidency as foreign trade increases. Customs revenue means that we are making money inspecting the goods, taxing the goods that are coming in for foreign trade. This is a way for the government to make money while they are spending money. We are also going to see money made off of the land out west. Americans are going to be moving to that land. They're going to purchase it. They purchase it from the federal government, which means we make money. So we'll see the national debt decrease during Jefferson's presidency. During Jefferson's Democratic Republican presidency, we are also going to see that the Democratic Republicans don't practice displays of wealth in order to gain respect, as the Federalists did. The Federalists were extremely wealthy. Not that the Democratic Republicans won't be, but these leaders won't use that wealth as a display of power. Instead, they're going to separate money from leadership. Under Jefferson, one of the biggest pieces that we need to remember is that the nation is going to expand. Now, we can look at this in two different ways. We can look at the nation expanding in terms of population, which it was doing. It doubled every 25 years. And at the time, we hadn't purchased more land or expanded into new territories since the Revolutionary War, our border then becoming the Mississippi River. As our population increases, the demand for more land also increases. And we are going to need to provide for those who are demanding more land and demanding the opportunity to chase after the American dream, which was to own property. Jefferson is going to turn his attention towards the Louisiana Territory to make this come true. The Louisiana Territory, though, had belonged to the Spanish Empire. Now, the Spanish Empire was becoming increasingly weak over time, and Spain is going to lose the Louisiana Territory to the French leader Napoleon, who you have learned about. Now, once Napoleon has that land, he's going to attempt to block the Americans from New Orleans. New Orleans is incredibly important because it is what we call a port city. This port city opened up into the Gulf of Mexico, which was a place to trade. And we needed to be able to go down the Mississippi to the New Orleans port and trade out of there. Now, in order to gain access to New Orleans, Jefferson is going to propose a deal to Napoleon. Originally, he's going to go into that deal proposing to purchase New Orleans, but Napoleon counters and says, you can have the whole Louisiana Territory for $15 million. Now, this is huge because now our country has the land from the Mississippi to the Rocky Mountains, and we double the size of our nation in one quick purchase. Now, I believe in 7th grade you guys probably talked about this much more than we are going to in here, but in 1804, in order to learn about the territory that we have gained in the Louisiana Purchase, Jefferson is going to send Meriwether Lewis and William Clark to explore this new territory. And as they go across the new territory, they start to learn about what is out there, who is out there, what kind of land did we just purchase, and mapping out this new territory so that we could move across. To get an idea of how vast this territory is, the Louisiana Purchase is circled in red there, and everything that was not in red is the land that we had before. This land that we had before, you can see, is half of what our nation was. We doubled the size of our nation. Now, a regions question that you might see is one that you see on your screen right now. This question is typical of relation to the Louisiana Purchase. And if we look at these questions here, the first question says which two areas of the map are made up of the United States in 1803 as a result of the Louisiana Purchase. We are looking at areas A and D for the answer there. And we'll get to the Mexican-American War and we'll know the answer to that question, but know that the Louisiana Purchase often, when it's shown up on the regions, comes with a map question. Under Jefferson, there are going to be some foreign issues that we are going to have to deal with and look into. These foreign issues, first of all, are going to be the British impressment. Now, it's not very impressive what the British do to the Americans, but what British impressment is the British were attempting to show their dislike of American independence since day one. And one of the ways in which they would do that is by taking American ships, taking American sailors who were out to trade. This practice of taking American sailors off of the ships and forcing them into the British Navy is known as impressment. Now, the reason why the British were doing this is because they were in all-out war against the French and they needed more sailors, and they needed to prove a point to the Americans that they were not strong, so they kind of killed two birds with one stone here. By 1812, which we're going to get into more of 1812 tomorrow, 6,000 roundabout American citizens had been captured and forced to work in the British Navy. That's a large number. Now, the Democratic Republicans, which Jefferson is, are going to look at these actions of the British and say, number one, this is insulting. They're not respecting us as a separate nation that is independent, and they're threatening our growth, our economic growth, because what they're taking from us are our trade ships, also called our merchant ships. And when they take those and they take our men, they're taking goods, which could have made us money, and they're taking ships, which we're going to have to reconstruct, and they're taking sailors, which we now are going to have to find more of. All of that hurts our economy and is very insulting to the United States. Jefferson's response to the British is going to lose him a lot of favor with the Americans. Jefferson is going to respond to the actions of the British by passing what's called an embargo. Now, to remember what embargo means, I want you to put in the phrase in your brain, under an embargo, we don't go. Because under this embargo that Jefferson puts into place, we do not have any ships leaving any American ports. The goal here was, if the ships don't leave, they can't be taken. If there are no ships on the waters, the goods can't be taken. If there are no ships on the water, the men can't be taken. And this essentially was meant to hurt the British because we couldn't really go to war yet. Jefferson wanted to avoid going to war. Remember, in the very beginning of class today, we said he decreased the debt by cutting the Navy and making cuts to the Army. So we weren't really in a position to go ahead and fight the British right now. Instead, the only action that we could do is taking away what they were taking. Now, this was expected to hurt the British by not allowing them to take our ships, our sailors, our goods. On top of that, Jefferson had the thought in his brain that if the British aren't trading with us, they're going to have to find somebody else to trade with, and they won't be able to find someone who has the goods that we have, and that will hurt them. Well, it didn't hurt the British. In fact, it hurt America more than it hurt the British. American merchants, those tradesmen, were going bankrupt. Sailors who work on ships and can only work on ships when they leave were out of work. And farmers who send their goods out to be traded, they were extremely hurt by this. Farmers at this time, not only did they produce for here on the home front, but they also produced for people abroad. And they produced that much at all times. You can't just stop crops from growing. And once they are growing and you're not sending them out, they just go bad. There's nothing you can do with them. There's only so much you can sell here. So farmers were very hurt by this. Jefferson is going to have to end the embargo in 1809, but at this time, the damage was already done and it was too late. He was heading out of office. Jefferson is not going to be reelected in 1808, even though he had been reelected in 1804 and he had served 2 terms. Instead, we're going to see James Madison come after him. Now, this is another trend that we're seeing with the 2-term limit here. While with Washington, he leaves on his own after 2 terms, Adams really leaves from not being reelected. The people didn't want to reelect him. And then here again, Jefferson is not being reelected. So sometimes it's a choice after 2 terms, and sometimes the people make the choice to not elect into a 3rd term. And here with Jefferson, that is the story. He is not reelected in 1808 as he had been in 1804, mainly because of the embargo. People really didn't like how much this backfired on us and really hurt us instead of the British. Now, for homework tonight, don't forget to do the Jefferson reading, a little bit more on these decisions. And next time we come together, we'll be doing Section 5 on the War of 1812. Any questions you have, please let me know.